Hey, I know, like, you know where I'm at, like, hey, Jeff, no, I got you, brody. Look, hey, let's go, hey.
Wise.
Real life, real talk, never fall, we ain't doing that. Want me fall off, but I can't, I'm just too attached. I was so lost, I ain't going back. Never fall, never fall. We on the road, yeah, we on the road. Every day like the Olympics gon' go. Yeah. I'm in control, I thought you should know. Real life, real talk, never fall.
Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm here with Murdoch Razmi. He is a business director, investor, and advisor. He's here today to talk about business, talk about making money, where to start, how to start, what to do once you're started, and what to do once you're there. I get questions all the time on Instagram from people asking for advice, and you know I'm not the best at giving advice because it's not what I do. So I got him today. Thank you for coming on, bro. I appreciate your time.
All good. Happy to be here.
Give the people a bit of background about yourself, what you do, who you work with, just so they get an idea, and then we'll move from there.
Yeah, sure. So typical day-to-day is spent advising clients with their businesses, what that might look like. Some of you might call it a mentor or a coach, whatever the preference is. It's much of a muchness. I also invest in some of those companies, and I'm actively looking to do so for more. And yeah, I just help them achieve their goals. Ideally, you know, some of them are smaller, some of them are larger, some of them are even bigger than what you might think is large. But at the end of the day, the theme is the same. I'm all about growth.
What we like to hear. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. So I think the biggest thing I see, the biggest thing I get asked is, I have a lot of you know, clients and friends and whatever, and they want to start a business, but they kind of don't know where to start. They might have an idea, they might not have an idea, but they always say like, I want to start something. So in your experience, what would you recommend? Like, where would you start, like literally from the ground?
Yeah, I guess so. What I see quite frequently at that level, at the very, very, very start, is there's typically quite a basic thought process. And it's along the lines of like, I'm good at X, you know, whatever that might be, and I don't want a boss. And sometimes they have an idea around what it is they may want to do, even if it is different to what they're currently doing in their role. But that's typically the start. And a lot of the times it's actually enough just to get you started, right? Because just like we'll use the meathead analogy, like there's the discipline and there's the motivation, right? The motivation's enough to wake your ass up out of bed, but the discipline's the thing that keeps you going, even when you really can't be ass training. So that's typically the thought process that I've seen. It's enough to get people started. But I've got a list of questions I always like to ask, and I think you need to consider when starting a business, whether it's an idea, like a product, a service, an app, whatever it is. I think firstly you need to look at what the market currently is like. So is it saturated, right? Like, are you going to go online and start drop shipping fidget spinners? Probably not, because that ship's sailed, it's saturated, there's no margin in it, right? Is it like a fragmented market where it's sort of it's a big market, but there's heaps of little players, right? Think like lawn mowing companies, heaps of them. A lot of them are like teenagers, like franchises, that sort of thing. It's a real sort of like fragmented market. Is it a dominated market? So like, are you looking at starting a supermarket when there's only like, you know, the big two that just dominate everything? What are the barriers to entry, i.e. capital? Are you going to need some sort of legal, are you going to need government support? Are there trade barriers? Is there a reason why you can't or may not be able to ship to a certain place? How big is that actual market? Is it big enough to achieve your goals? I mean, for a lot of people, when they're in this starting a business process, they're not really thinking, I want to start $1 billion company, right? A lot of them are thinking, oh, I'm good at this and I want to do it myself. So, but it's still good to know how big your market is. The other one to ask is like, who are your competitors? If you go into a market where there's a lot of competitors, how are you going to compete, right? Like, are you going to compete on price? Are you going to be cheaper? Or are you going to differentiate yourself? Are you going to offer a bespoke service instead of an online only service? Or are you going to do a hybrid? Are you faster at doing something than other people? I say this to construction and service clients all the time. The turnarounds for this sort of thing at the moment are shocking. If you can get something done fast, you'll get the pick every time. What makes you special, I guess? So like, why would someone pick you over them? So if you, for example, you go on Google, you type tiling company, right? You see an ad and it says We'll bring samples to you. You know what I mean? We'll come after hours. We have the best pricing in New Zealand. And then you see Joe Blog being like, Tyler, Auckland, who are you going to pick? I guess you got to think about how you're going to stand out against these guys, right? Who are you, if you're going to get into product or you're going to use other service providers, like who are your suppliers going to be? Going through this exercise now for another entity, and the differences aren't just price. It's not just about who's cheapest, right? Like who's going to give you the best service, who's going to who's going to get your product on time, who's going to make sure it gets here in one piece. I guess, what is your margin? Like, I've got clients that have been in business for 7 years, and I go, cool, what's your average margin on this? And they don't have a fucking clue. It's ridiculous. I don't know how people survive. They don't know how much money they're making on something. You know, what are you going to need to get started? Beyond money, right? Is it something you can do yourself? Are you going to need to hire a team straight away? Are you going to need contractors? How much runway do you have? I.e., if your product doesn't sell, like how long do you have before you run out of money? And I like to do various scenarios, right? You've got like best case, which is it goes really, really well. You've got mid case, which is typically what happens. And then you've got like absolute worst case, doom and gloom, which sort of like rarely happens. But having a plan for each of those is ideal, right? How much are you gonna like? How are you gonna promote yourself? Oh, I'm gonna do marketing. I'm gonna do Facebook ads, right? That's cool. Well, Facebook ads are only one part of the equation. What's your whole marketing funnel? How are you gonna reach people in different mediums? What about people on Pinterest, right? If you're a furniture company, you should be on Pinterest because that's where people go right at the start for inspiration. You know, they'll look at lounge settings.
That's
You know,
so true. We
there's
just did that.
it's not just I'm going to run Facebook ads and get in front of people. It's like at what stage are you going to get in front of people? Right at the start when they're still thinking about redoing their lounge, or right at the end when they're ready to buy? Because the people that are ready to buy are less than 3%. So what are you going to do to like nurture the other 97? I mean, I'm just touching on all of these just to kind of get through them
There's a lot
quick for you,
to
but
consider.
like just banging out. What about IP? This is the one that I find that gets people. And unfortunately we've done it in another entity. It's like, have you trademarked your name, your logo? Right? Like that's the biggest one. People go in and go, I don't think people realize that just because they register a company, they don't actually have the rights to use their name. It's scary. If you haven't done that now, you have a business, go trademark your name ASAP.
This is trademark FYI. So anyone who uses it, I'm going to sue you.
I mean, and it's not quite America, but yeah, like, or if someone really if someone wants to make life difficult for you and you don't have it, let's say you're Joe Blog Limited and you run like a landscaping company, right? I can, if he doesn't have the trademark, I can go and get Joe Blog and I can say, sorry, I can send him a system, be like, hi, I have the trademark to this. You can't trade as this. Scary, right? Like they don't think about, and to be honest, like it took me my like second business to realize, I was like, it's pretty important. Like if I had to change my name, it would cost me 20, 30, 40 grand, which at that time is just, it'll put you out of business, right? Ooh, and then I guess the last one sort of like, who are you going to get to support you? So I kind of built up like a good network over time, trial and error, referrals, that sort of thing, around like accountants. Like getting a good accountant is make or break. You know, like you pay what you get what you pay for, sort of thing. But like finding someone who will actually provide you advice, isn't just willing to slap you with a bill for sending them a quick text message or something like that, but also gives you different scenarios and a bit proactive. I find here a lot of the times they're real reactive, and that you only deal with them when you do your annual accounts, which nobody gets done in April, right? It normally gets done in 6 months after the fact. And if for some reason there's something that's gone wrong, or you haven't set aside enough tax, or you worked something out wrong, you can get hit with a big bill. That's probably 50 times what your accounting is charging you anyway. So like accountant's a good one. Legal, making sure you have legal support when it comes to like your contracts and your agreements. I think to start, for most people, you can go online and there's templates for HR and things like that that you can use that will get you to a certain point. But after sort of year 2, you really want to go to a lawyer and get something specifically done for you around all the HR policy and health and safety and that, because it can bite you. Especially in New Zealand when it comes to employees, it's definitely way in favor of the employee when it comes to personal grievances. So it's almost like guilty until proven innocent for the employer. So making sure you've got systems and processes as well as like all the legal backup to kind of back you up in case anything goes wrong And then another one for me is like something that sort of helped me quite early on was like making sure you have good mentors and people that advise you around you. If someone came to me who's completely fresh, I promise you I'd save you 2 or 3 years of headache just by all these little things that you miss out early on and making sure you do them early on. And I see clients come to example in the ad agency I own, they come there after having been burnt by 3 other people who don't know what they're doing, whereas I'm like, oh, if you had gone through here and done this, it saves them a lot of cash too, right?
That's just like anything.
So
Like literally
yeah, just like anything, right?
Have good people around you. They're going to teach you. They're going to give you the right way to go about it. Go down the right avenues, and you're going to save years. It's the same with building a physique. It's like you can spin your
Well, I'm
wheels
an
for
example
5
for
years.
that, right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
I did the running thing, got to running half marathons within 3 months, and then I was like, I'm going to do a little bulk again. For those of you that don't know, Jordan and I used to be meathead buddies. What, like I don't know, like a decade, or longer than a decade.
Longer than
Like
that.
it was it was we were young, we were
2012, I
like
think.
teenagers. Yeah, and I thought, I'm sure I'll figure it out, and I just pissed around. Like I did the cut ish. Went to Jordan for 6 weeks. What did we put on? It was something like 22 kilos in like 10 weeks or something.
Yeah, and you didn't get fat.
Like
Crazy.
I didn't get that fat. I think I just got used to being like relatively lean for a few months, and I was like, oh yeah. But like we got some results, right? Like it was insane. And if I think of the amount of time I'd spent down the YouTube black hole trying to figure out calorie counting and like fucking carnivore diet and all that sort of rubbish, I just said, hey man, this is what I want to do. These are my goals. Boom, we did it, and we're still working on it. So same thing. I think don't be afraid to like reach out to mentors and stuff quite early on. Just be wary as well. Like I would definitely look into like talk to people who like say for you, Jordan, people might ask a couple of your clients, what's he like to work with? What are the results? Do the same thing. Be like, oh yeah, how long have you been working with this person? Because unfortunately in my space, there's a lot of shit. You've seen all the courses selling you how to start a consulting business and make 10 grand a month passive and all that sort of rubbish. Like that's not the type of person you want to deal with. Ideally go for someone who's done or is doing what you're looking to do.
Yeah,
right?
I've just to like add to that, I've had a lot of messages, DMs and stuff from business advisors like in the States and everywhere, and they want to talk to you, they want to sell their service, and there was a few that I wouldn't say I considered it, but I knew them. Like I used to watch their YouTube back in the day. So like this was when I was first started lifting weights, and now they've moved from that to doing the mentoring and stuff. And I said, oh yeah, what's the cost? And they want like 20K upfront US dollars, which like I'm not saying it's not worth that, but if you go and like pay that much money to someone and you don't get anything back, and if that's all the money you have, that's going to be a problem. So just from my point of view, I would always say if you're going to spend money on someone that helps building a business, do it probably with someone that like someone knows, or there's been positive results. Don't just go to someone because they drive a Lamborghini, because they might not.
Yeah, and that you can fake all that shit too, right?
Yeah.
And I guess when you're younger, that's what really that's what you think you want and that sort of thing. But especially in the States, it's way easier, right? You can lease a Lambo for like 1,500 a month or something. Like it's not that hard to fake. I guess what you sort of want, and like what I think, and I've got clients that I'm like mentoring that are wanting to do what I've done, right? Or at least do half of what I've done or something. Like I can speak from experience, but also got all the theoretical stuff, right? From the degree that I can sort of factor in. I definitely think I'd highly recommend just trying to find someone local too. Most of my clients come from referral or from, like a friend of a friend of a friend sort of thing. And anyway, that's business. That's how business typically happens, right? Like you're not going to have 80% of your customers coming out of thin air. Referral base is a lot, which I'll touch on sort of later. So that in a nutshell was kind of that like launch, very early stage sort of questions. If I jump into like that next phase, it's kind of a theme, right? You have like your pillars of business, you have marketing, you have people, you have finance, you have all that. You just ask slightly more complicated and like larger questions for each sort of pillar. So that sort of like launch startup-y phase, typically depending on what industry your business is in, like product, service, tech, whatever. Typically that like 200K, like 1 mil sort of turnover. that next sort of phase is like, okay, cool, like you've launched now a bit, you've kind of gone through a little bit of this, and then you can kind of tell it's slowly starting to like either dip or you're stagnant. You're looking for what's next. So what's next? A couple of the biggest ones is like, well, you need a plan to keep growing beyond that, right? Like what got you from, say, 200K to 1 million a year is completely different than what will get you from 1 to 5 million a year.
Okay, let's
And I almost say
slow
that,
down,
like,
slow down, because hang on,
get too excited.
yeah, because we haven't got out of the hole yet. So
Yeah,
say I've come to you, I've launched a fitness, I've launched a fitness coaching app or a coaching business or whatever online.
yep.
I've launched it. I've posted it on Instagram. It's live. Now, give me some from your opinion, from your experience. If I'm trying to now grow, what are some of the key things I have to be doing? So literally, I'm talking to go to earn a stable income, not necessarily hundreds of thousands, just a stable income. What are some key things that have to be in place? Like I know what I think, but I want to hear what you say.
So for that specific example, I'd sort of ask myself, is this product something that I can sell to my current user base, right? So let's say you've got a following or use your following. That's great. Is this a product that they would still use too? Or is this to substitute what you're actually offering in terms of your coaching? Or is this a product that, you've got your coaching that's here. This is a bit more of like a product that's a bit more readily available, price wise. So this is a premium offering. They get you personally, like I do send you the photos, get comms to you, whatever. But this one is more like you get access to the training and the nutrition side of it, but you don't get that personal access. Then that's something that like initially you start with the low hanging fruit, right? So I'd launch it to my following. Like, hey, for those of you like, which would be a lot, right? Like if you think of your following, like how many of them can afford the one-to-one? Probably not many. How many of them could afford hypothetically, I don't know, $7 a week, whatever that number is that an app might cost, a lot more people. And then there's those people that aren't like would love to work with you but can't quite afford that sort of product, would happily buy this product, right? So those are the questions I sort of be asking. What's the lowest hanging fruit? Well, people that have been following you for ages but can't afford your premium offer, you'd offer them that sort of product. The next step for that would be not necessarily like I have an app, I'm going to launch it internationally. It's like, okay, cool. How do I take you to another market, right? And if you're going to another market, I'd probably say, well, what's the closest market to mine? Because that's the easiest, right? If you have a market that you've already like been successful in, you'd be silly to go, cool, I'm going to go launch Jordan Hill Fitness in China.
Yeah.
They're just polar opposites, right? Like you'd have to, it's starting again. Whereas if you went, I've kind of done really, really well in New Zealand, I'm going to launch in Australia. And you target similar people that you've got here over there, and you'd use that because Aussies will work with Kiwis, right? Because there's only a 2 hour time difference. It's a much easier sell than someone who's working in a different time zone and that sort of thing. And chances are you might be able to get some referrals and things like that because it's a bit closer to home. But yeah, I wouldn't go breaking into a completely new market with the same strategy because there's a language barrier. They're culturally different. There's a lot of different things. You might have noticed because is it Chile? You've got some South American clients, don't you?
South America, yeah.
Yeah. So
from last
how did that come about?
So I coached Kathy. She got a pro card 2022. She's from there. She's from there.
Okay.
And then she introduced me to a couple girls, and I, just did a good job with them. And then they post about it. More people message me, want coaching, and it just grew from just referral, literally referrals. All of it is referrals, as you just said. And now that's grown outside of Chile, and I'm in other countries as well, all in South America. But that's how it's kind of happened. And I started it. I didn't speak Spanish at all, zero Spanish. So I had to.
You do now, though, apparently.
A little bit. I had to navigate that as well as the time zones. As you said, time zones can be hard, like especially when they're competing, and like you're peaking them, and you've got to check on them every 2 hours, and it's like you're waking up at 2, 4, 6, but it's just what you got to do. So again, that's one of those things we said before. Like you've got to. I don't know if we touched on it much, but you're going to have to. Like there's going to be things that are going to happen where you're going to have to do which you might not want to do. You know what I mean? When you
I mean, if in a nutshell, like a common theme in business is like you have to eat shit. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
At every point, at every stage in the cycle, you're eating some shit. I
But-
think it's
but-
got to be a gimme from the
But
start.
I guess for me, I'm lucky because like I enjoy it so much. It's not
Yeah.
like I have to wake up and like, fuck you, let's go. We're gonna like win this shit. So that I think for me that makes it a lot easier because I know there will be a lot of people in business who won't necessarily like what they do, but they make a lot of money doing it, and they may be addicted to like making money, but more than they are about actually what they're offering or what they're doing. And that's fine because everyone's got their thing. Just glad that like for me, it just makes it easier for me to have that discipline, have that motivation, because that's more what drives me than the actual outcome of I'm going to make this much. You know what I mean? It's just a byproduct of doing what I do.
Just use what you've got, right? Like I can tell you at each stage of cracking something or whatever in business, there was something different that motivated me, right? For context, here's a bunch of examples, right? Very early on, you use your daddy issues or whatever you've got, like, Dad, I'm going to prove you wrong, right? There's phase one. Then there's something else that comes along, and you're like, I want a shiny watch, I want a shiny car. Cool, use that as fuel. Print off a photo of that watch and stick it over your bed head or whatever. That's great. 3, oh, Nick, I want to do more stuff with charity. Great, use that as fuel. Whatever it is, just lean into it. You shouldn't ever feel bad for like, unless it's something really grim, but like you shouldn't ever feel bad for having something motivate you in a certain way as long as it works.
For sure,
right?
for sure.
Motivation, discipline. The motivation gets you out of bed. The discipline keeps you going. Like I'll be straight up. I haven't enjoyed training for the last 2 months anywhere near as much as I did at the start. But it's just part of like it's embedded now. Cool. I get up. I have my fucking rice flakes and whatnot, and then I go to work, and then I get my second meal, and I do my like it's just part of it.
I had that
to build
conversation
habits.
with my training partner yesterday. Actually, I said like,
Yeah.
the last few weeks I just haven't wanted to train. We still train, but like I haven't had the urge, because we're talking about people that like say, oh, I'm not feeling good. I had a month off because I wasn't feeling great. I'm like, I haven't wanted to train for weeks, but hey, I'm there, I'm doing it, and I'm putting everything I have into it because it's just what you do. But before we move on,
just on that same sort of topic though, right? Like I feel like for context, I've gone through phases where I'm like, I'm gonna sell everything, I'm gonna retire, and I'm gonna live off X, and I'm gonna be one of the, what is it called? It's like fire movement or something, right? And they all live off like 30 grand a year, and they're all really happy, right? I've gone from that extreme to wanting to be a billionaire, back and forth, all within the space of like 3 days. So like that's completely normal, right? Like people change. It is. But the difference being is having the ability to realize that you're doing that and still stay on track.
Because
you know what I mean? Like,
deep down your goal. Like like
you're like me the same. Like I want to take over the world, right? Like in a positive way, but like I'm like I just want to do the best that I can do. I'm gonna have days where I'm like, this sucks, whatever, and I just can't be asked with it, and I'm gonna go, retire in Thailand or something or whatever that is. But then the next day I'm like, no. That's an emotional knee-jerk response to having a shit day or whatever, right?
Even when you have those thoughts, you're still doing
still doing it. Like
yeah.
grit. It's called grit.
That's
like just being able to do it despite everything.
That's something we'll probably touch on, but that's something that like lets a lot of people down in my industry is just doing the work when it suits them. This I'm talking about coaching. And it's why a lot of people, they get these like, I'm starting to do quite well for myself, and all of a sudden I'm back at fucking ground zero. Now I'm building it back up, and you never get there because you just keep doing this all the time because you're only doing the work when it suits you. You know what I mean? But I just wanted to quickly touch on like, what are some? Again, I'm going to relate it to fitness just because that's what I get asked. And that's what I do. But so sometimes people will message me and be like, oh, how, like, I need some help to grow. And I'll just like, I'm no expert, but I'll go on their page and I'll say, well, you haven't posted one successful client transformation, and like, I can't see one. I've just scrolled and I can't see one. Like, and my like logic tells me that, like social proof of what you can do should be, it might not be the forefront for everyone, because I know some very successful people, way more successful than me, in the fitness industry, who use themselves as their image and their marketing, and they've made millions, but they still have social proof as well. Like they don't just do that. And I think that's a trap people go down. Like at the end of the day, like if you, for example, you probably don't care what I do in the gym or how I look, but you do care about what all those other people look like that use my blueprint. Because essentially that's what you're wanting to see, what you can do for multiple people, not just with yourself. And And that's one of the things I think is should just be a no-brainer and something that people should really focus on. But at the same time, not. I sometimes see people way too eager as well, and they'll post results before there's anything really to see.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, like, I understand you're excited, you want to show your results, you want to show you have clients, but if there's no real change between point A, point B, that's not going to make people want to work with you. So what's your thoughts? And is there any other things, like just simple things like that, that you think people should implement, just trying to, get off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, to summarize what you're saying, it's the same carries over to any business, right? It's show versus tell. If I told you, hey, Jordan, I'm worth 20 billion, you'd go, oh, he's full of shit. If I showed you my bank account or whatever, and you'd be like, okay, cool. It's pretty hard to say no to something that's true, right? Like when there's proof. That's why they call it social proof. Fitness is the worst for this shit, man. Like I personally, ever since I started getting back into it, my algorithm on Instagram is just horrible. It's just all blah 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 stuff, where it's just like, fuck, I saw someone that's like, I lost 28 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm like, how? That's just like the fucking math just doesn't add up. How did you lose what, 17 kilos or something like that? And just bullshit. It's just like that extreme stuff, right? Because I think what I quite like about you is you show like the varying in results. You'll show a guy that's got jacked and put 20 kilos or whatever on in 3 months, and you'll show girls that have doing like the wellness track. You'll show the physique track, like, and eventually, and this is kind of what happened to me, is someone will see one that's kind of like them, and they'll go, "That's what I want to look like." You know what I mean? Like, I didn't look at like, say, one of your top pro competitors and go, "Oh yeah, that's why I'm going to go talk to him." I found someone that was like similar to what my goals are, and I was like, "Oh, like, can I do that, Natty?" And you're like, "Fuck yeah!" And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." So it's that sort of like the combos that the customer, like your potential clients, have with themselves that you're unaware of, that social proof kind of tells them.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, because also a lot of like the trend now with online, like business coaches, is they'll say just pick one market and just like be, that's your target market. So they'll be like, just pick just coach women who have just had a child, or just coach.
Yeah, niche down.
It's real niche, and I understand that, but at the same time, obviously there's other people who can do everything, and they're very successful doing everything. And like you just said, you'll just post one thing, and someone might see that, and they might trigger them, and they get results, and another 10 people do, and then another person saw a different post. So I don't know if I get it. I get that way of doing things, but I don't know if I fully in terms of just picking one thing. But I don't know.
I mean, both works, right? Depends what your goal is.
Both works, but I also think it comes down to what, like, I want to help. I genuinely want to help as many people as possible. So it's not, for me, it's more than just what's a cool sales pitch or sales strategy to get clients. I want to help as many people as I want. So I don't want to narrow it down to like, and I get a lot of enjoyment. Like I really enjoy working with wellness girls. Everyone knows that, you can see it on Instagram, but I also really like getting guys jacked and getting guys shredded, and working with girls who want to get jacked, or just normal everyday people who are like 130 kilo and they want to get healthy and they want to drop 40, 50 kilo. Like I love that too, because that's life changing. So I don't want to narrow it down because it's fun, and it's very fulfilling as well. So I think, like you said at the start, it's funny because it's all coming together. Like you said at the start, it's about your vision and about what you want from it, whether that be a dollar sign or that be fulfillment, or it might be both. Like, yeah, it just comes down to what you want. So yeah, that just came full circle. I didn't even realize
it could be all of it though, right? I think what you're coming down to is, like, say everyone says niche down, which you can, but you can also have multiple customer avatars, right? Like I'll use you, like you've just done a perfect example. You can have bodybuilding clients, you can have fitness and wellness, as long as, for example, like your messaging reflects that, right? Like all of a sudden, if your website is just full blown meatheads, just photos of meatheads everywhere, and then you have a section that says like you do wellness, how many wellness clients do you think you're going to get? Whereas like if they come on, you're like, instead of like Jordan Mill bodybuilding coach, you could be like Jordan Mill lifestyle and bodybuilding coach. And then your photos can have a mix, right? Like you'd have one bodybuilder, one wellness, one lifestyle. Like, and then they go, okay, cool, this guy can cater to that, right? It's not like,
on that.
yes.
How important do you think the website is in terms of how it looks and how it appears?
Everything. It's like it's your storefront, right? It's like a lot of people, for you, like, and this is just like naturally where you've gone with with the business, right? Is like you're very IG heavy.
Yeah.
That's the content stuff that they see through, but then eventually they're going to be like, I'm going to go check his website out and see what he's about, right?
Yeah.
They'll click on your website, and it's a permanent representation of you and your business and who you are.
Because I kind of like, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I kind of see my Instagram as my website. I have my website, which is what people go to, but I kind of feel like my Instagram is like my, you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at? Like,
yeah, it's who you
Yeah.
are. It depends on what you're using it for, right? So like, say for you, for example, you are correct in some ways. That's your brand presence is Instagram.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like just using a website to transact, right? Like it's kind of like they've already made the decision. They're just going there yeah. So that's one angle, and technically that would be like you niching into Instagram. But what about YouTube? Like you're breaking into YouTube now, right? Your YouTube, everything, the aim of everything ideally would be to drive them to your website. And your website would have a lot more information than your socials. And that would be built out strategically to be able to progress a person from not knowing much about you to being like, I know enough now to buy.
Okay.
And then you'd have ads that nurture them along that sort of journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still think your website's everything. Because another angle that you're probably missing out on is like Google. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I could find out pretty quickly how many people search for online bodybuilding coach, like globally, let alone just in New Zealand.
Yeah. And I
So
guess
like that's another avenue that you could generate business. So I don't think you like in terms of like tapping out a market, a lot of people think they're like, oh, I've tapped out, I've tapped out New Zealand, or I've tapped out Auckland or whatever. But like you've probably saturated a big chunk of like the bodybuilding market just because you're known and you compete. You've been doing that for a decade. But what about the lifestyle clients? You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, there's so many. There's so many. Well, there are millions.
huge, right?
Yeah, one of the main reasons I asked you that is because I have a few friends who have they're doing startups. Like they're literally in that first part that we spoke about. They're literally just launching, and they asked me like, do you reckon I should pay for a website, which can be expensive for someone that's just like got a 9 to 5. They got 9 to 5s and they want to do like start this as like a side thing and ideally build it up to something that's takes over their job. And they're like, do you reckon I should build a website now or get someone to build a website for me or just do payments through Instagram? And I wasn't sure, to be honest, because I'm like, well, I don't even know if your idea is going to work, and how long is it going to take you to make that money back? I don't know. So that's part of the reason, but you just answered it. So
I'll go into a bit more detail on that question too, because I get it a lot with clients. I go, oh, I can get a Squarespace site for $500. Like again, it depends on what you use it for, but ideally in a perfect world, depending on how experienced you are and how well you know. So like we're doing a website for another one of our businesses, and that's cost me close to like just the website part, like 25 grand, and then we'll probably spend another 6-7 grand on the content. But the price point for that product, if we get like one lead, is worth 15 to 80 grand. So it's all relative, right? I think if you're a service-based business, let's say you're a plumber or a sparky or anything, any service for that, early on, you can kind of get away with just having a really nice one-page website, right? Hero, this is what we are. Here's our punchline. Here's a brief summary about us. Here's some of the work we've done. You know what I mean? Like, here's our contact details. Here's our services. That's it. You can get away with that to start. Then depending on because a lot of your work very early on is probably going to come from referrals, right? And then you're going to start into advertising and that. And naturally, as you get bigger and you're going to need to work harder to get new clients that don't know you, that's probably when you should spend a bit more. If you're inexperienced in business, it's like your first rodeo, I'd probably just suggest within reason, you can find a nice designer to do a Squarespace website for like $1,000, give or take. And then down the track though, if you really want to grow, you're not going to be doing 5 million a year with like a shitty one-page website.
These are people that are like selling things, like
if you're doing product and e-commerce, it's a whole different story. Like again, use that relative, it's all relative, right? Like if you're selling a $10 product very early on and you've got minimal stock, this is the other thing too with e-commerce, right? It doesn't matter, like they've got a product that's profitable, but then they don't have much money to buy stock. So it's like you're actually capped because like even if you sold out all of them, it's still hard to get a return because you don't have enough stock, right? E-commerce though is more important to have your website spick And when I say that, I don't mean just like a bunch of fancy design stuff. Like everything has to work, your pages have to load fast, and everything has to be easy to use. So no broken links, you know what I mean? Like no glitches, like take out as like think about your whole, there's like homepage, product page, like product range, product page, cart page, checkout, right? Like you want to get that whole process in as little, like make it as easy as possible for people. Some people
So
try and do all
so
this
they buy it
weird
before they
fancy.
change their mind.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. Make it easy for them.
yeah.
That and shipping. Shipping's a big one for people. So when and where possible, try and do free shipping and use an offer, right? So don't just give it to them. Be like, if you spend over $80, you get free $10 shipping or whatever. Two birds with one stone. It gets them, A, it shows them that there's no hidden charge at the end of it, and B, it gets them to spend more. So use that where you will.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Okay. Okay, so we're there now. We've covered all that. We've covered what needs to be in place. I guess one other thing we could touch on though is again, I'm relating it to what I get asked, but again, people will ask me like, I want to do this, and I'm like, well, you only have 200 followers, so you're going to have a hard time. And those followers might not necessarily be related to what you're trying to achieve. Like if you're trying to be an online coach, how many of your followers actually even care about the gym? So sometimes you've got to go all the way back and like, okay, you've actually got to build a following before you can build a coaching business, And I've had that myself. Like I've noticed that myself. The better my following's got, the more it's just common sense. There's more people watching your stuff, so there's going to be more leads come your way without even trying a lot of the time. So
there's an easy formula to that. There's a very easy formula to that, and I'm not going to get into depths of it because there's out there for free. But like, there's an Alex Hormozy video who breaks down how he gets his first 20 clients. As just in a nutshell, do X amount of clients at the very start for free. Cool, do well for them, and then like you said, you've got transformation photos, right? Then start using that to get more customers, and that's how you get your start off.
And that's such a big one, and so I've said that to so many people before who have wanted to get things off the ground, and they have followings, they just can't build a business. And I was like, well, you've got nothing to post, so coach some people for free and do a good job with it. And not everyone's going to need to do that, but some people will, and they just don't want to do it. A lot of people just don't want to do it.
Well, go and PT at a gym for a bit, right? Because don't they give? I'm not sure how the logistics work, but like you've got access, you've seen at the gym, you can get photos of you training people at the gym, even if they're not clients. Like you can at least build some sort of social proof to back who you are. But I think the free one's the best because it's like it's you actually doing the work.
Yeah, I got a question about the in-person and online thing. We'll cover that probably at the end because I personally find it quite different. But anyway, I don't want to talk about too much because we're going to get to it. But for sure, now let's talk about leveraging because everyone wants to make. You might want to make a certain amount of money. Like I'll use myself as an example. My end goal in terms of financial wealth is to probably be making 4 times yearly what I make now, and I'll be quite content. But I know in order to do that, I can probably leverage what I'm doing to double what I'm doing, but then I'm probably going to have to do something else as well to get there. And I wouldn't have to, but I would like to do it that way. And the reason I like to do it that way is just because, as I said before, I'm a passion merchant. So like I operate on like passion and I love this shit, but there may come a day where I don't feel like that anymore and I don't like it. And I don't think I'll be able to work the way I do if I don't genuinely enjoy it and I don't genuinely feel the way I do about it. So I don't want to be in a position where I'm like, oh, well, I have to do it because, it just gives you that.
You need the money, yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, that's just one way to look at it. But what are some of the things? Well, let's talk about leverage. So what you take the lead here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess leverage is just getting more out of something than what you put in, right? And then how much of that leverage depends on what strategy you impose. So for example, like if you've got the most common one, you'd have someone as they leverage people, right? So for context for you, it would be hire people to do the stuff that you don't like doing or that isn't feasible for you to do. So for example, you may not see it, but like how you determine what people eat as IP. It's your IP, right? You won't realize it, but after a decade of like seeing what happens when you pull 30 grams of rice or you pull fats from here or whatever, that's your IP. And you could systematize that. So one avenue would be to teach that, like document that formula, right? And for you, it'd just be a matter of like, I don't know, you put aside a day and you're like, drop 30 grams of rice if client doesn't drop weight by this much. If they do, then add this. If they don't, then add that. And it would just be a series of like, if this, then that equations that you could then teach to someone, right? So people would be one, and it's typically the most standard choice. The problem with that is finding good people. So that's your limitation there. Plus that, in terms of leverage, isn't the most leveraged outcome, right? Because it's like for every one staff member you hire, for example, they can only manage X amount of clients. So for every X amount of clients you get, you have to get more staff, and that's your way to scale. That would get you to your 4 times, just whether that's the best option. The next one to do it is to, I guess you could sort of like leverage your time, which in a simple way would just be keep charging more as your demand grows, right? Keep building demand, keep putting your price up. Might not realize it, but within 3, 4, 5 years, you probably could 4x your charge because you've got a list up to the wazoo of people that want to work with you, and they'll pay you a premium. And you've seen other people that charge a lot more. So it's definitely doable, right? So that's one, is just leverage, like it's a pricing leverage. Problem with that is that isn't leverage because that's you still doing all the work, right? Another one to use is tech, which for you would be your app. So your app, for example, that's probably the most scalable solution, right? Because it's something that you build, it's taking all that IP that you've got, that you've made around how to make what tweaks and how many sets to do and what exercise and all that, and you're putting it into an app that an algorithm works that out for you, right? And that's theoretically like it's infinitely scalable because it doesn't require you to do any more work after that initial app setup. I'm not going to say the problem with that, but the difference between that is there's a massive difference between just doing the program and that sort of thing versus what clients get from you, which is that access, right?
And also so much of it is, especially working at a high level, so much of it is instinctual. Like you can't teach a lot of it. Like that's the problem. That's where people are going to go wrong. Though that kind of format is great if you're working with like lifestyle people trying to lose some weight, get lean. But if you're talking like bodybuilding, it's not. I don't think it's something you can teach people. Like for sure you can teach people, but like you said, it's a lot of it's just from doing it for so long. It's not always a formula. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like an instinct, and that's one of the in my, because I've heard this before as well. That's one of the roadblocks for that in that demand. But I guess like you said at the start, you can have the VIP or whatever you want to call it, and then the non VIP.
It's like a base product, right? Like you've got a scalable product, and for the most part, even if it's 70% of what, let's say it's 30% of what people get for you at a premium, right? That's fine. There's still a massive market for that. So if you want like true scale, that would be the go. It sounds like though, because what you offer is so bespoke, especially more with the guys and girls that compete, because it's like you said, like the 2 hourly like chickens and stuff. You can't get an app to do that. Not yet, but it's, you know what I mean? Like still probably wouldn't be able to do it. And I guess if that's where you're going to, then it's kind of like we're going back to that niching down though, right?
Yeah.
And double down. And there's obviously, like I said, you can have 2 levels. Like you can have a level where it's like elite bodybuilding coaching. Jordan is my premium offering. It's X amount, whatever that amount is. And then you have 1,000 people that use the app that don't require high touch, that they're just like, cool, I just want to program it and that's it, and maybe some way to track it. And that's fine. But
carry on.
No, you go.
I was gonna say it. I think something because like when we talk about this, that people will be listening, and we're saying all these things, and you're saying all these things, and it sounds like, oh yeah, this is what you do. But you've also, I challenge people to think about what that could potentially, what more negative, because I've thought about all this stuff. This is all things that I've thought about doing, and for me, like part of the reason why I don't offer a very, very cheap service, which I know can be highly scalable and you can make a lot of money doing it, is it can also water you down. And what it can also do is, say you're charging these are random figures. Say your cheap service $10 a week, and your general lifestyle service is $50 a week. Cool,
Yeah.
whatever. You might get heaps for $10, but what if 10 people who were gonna pay your $50 were like, oh no, I'm just gonna do the cheap one? You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but it's something that
Nah, but it's the value separation between the two, right? So you'd have to do it in a way that there's obviously clear value in picking that for that person. I mean, I prefer, like, look at me, like, I'm your ideal customer, right? Like, I don't want to fiddle around with an app. I like, doing a weekly thing, send you photos, fill out a questionnaire or whatever. And like, I get that bit more of that personalized thing. If I wanted that, I'd just go and Google it. So, but there's people that do like that. They think they're like the same type of people to go and do handy shit around their own house.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to pay a builder. They're not going to pay someone to come and do the maintenance work on their house. They're going to get the weed whacker out and do it themselves. Me, I can't be asked. I want that premium service. So I guess as long as like
That's
you're using
valuable.
your right your right messaging and you've got your value proposition correct on either side of it, like at either offering, it's fine. It's if you get them too close together where it's like,
This one doesn't.
yeah, okay, yeah. I think the main one for you is just the access,
charge,
right?
I've seen some people do, I haven't done this, but some people have done like 20-week programs. They'll offer a 20-week program and one will be more than the other, and the only day they might have some differences, but the key difference is like one is you have access to their WhatsApp and you can text them, call them, and the other one you just strictly email communication. So and that doesn't sound like a big thing, but it kind of is.
Oh, it's huge.
But again, it depends on the person. Like some people they don't care about, they're fine with emailing, I'll get email back tonight, that's fine. But then other people want that, like, to be able to
But
text.
you can offer both, and one should be worth more than the other, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess it's that fear of like, oh, if this person does that, that's great. If they want to go to that, that's cool. Don't reply to their fucking WhatsApp. Like you're not paying for it.
Yeah.
It's an obvious value add.
I've actually just changed that. So I've made all my lifestyle coaching is email communication now.
Yeah.
And then my like bodybuilding and stuff is through WhatsApp. And again, we haven't got into this yet, but that's just part of me making sure I'm being as efficient as possible with my time. Because that's another thing people don't do. They don't create, you do this for long enough and you kind of figure out what works for you. For me, I know, like I've had periods where I've had over 100 active clients checking. No, I'm talking like clients who check in every week, not like an app or anything like that.
Yeah.
And managed it just fine. But then I'll get people ask me, like, they'll be like, hey, like, I don't know how do you deal with 50 people? I'm like, 50? They're like, I can't deal with 20. I'm like, well, you need better systems, because at the end of the day, like you work with me, and like how I do check-ins, and for me that's just the most efficient way. And for some people that might not suit them, they might not like that. But my thinking is, I want to make this as like, it shouldn't matter. In my eyes, it shouldn't matter to the client how the check-in process is, because end of the day, the client is paying for a result. So it's in my opinion, it's up to the coach or the trainer or whatever you want to call them. It's up to them to create a system that's best for them to make their service as efficient as possible. So I could I could make my check-ins differently. I could bring you up and FaceTime you and talk for half an hour. But I'm telling you now, we won't be doing check-ins as often as we are, and all that's going to do is slow down your progress. So
I don't think it's needed. I think your actual process for chickens is really good. It's really easy for me.
and easy.
I can,
and
it's
people
same
don't like
time.
writing too much shit, because I have my form, and the amount of times I have to be like, can you fill the whole form in, please? Like, I need the whole. There's a reason I ask you these questions. But yeah, so that's just how I went way off topic here, but I wanted to bring
No,
it
it's good though, right? I think that, for
Right.
example, for you, like that chicken process, I thought was really good. And you'll notice, like, when I first started with you, it's like fucking novels, right? Because I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know why he's doing any of this. I'm just going to give him as much as possible. And then we kind of figure out what the gist is and like what it's like working together. And then I'm like, cool, still a little bit bloated. Please cut my cubs.
Yes.
or whatever, like,
Yeah.
still a bit bloated. But you know what I mean? Like, and that's a good dynamic though, right? Whereas like, I imagine other coaches would be like, I'm going to do all my chickens on Monday. Cool. So I'm slammed for 14 hours on a Monday. And then 3 days of the week, I've got my finger up, posting Instagrams that aren't relevant. Whereas you could obviously stagger them and you've got a good system. So there's the systems, but also like the expectation as well, right? Like very early on, you said to me like, "Hey man, I'm pretty responsive most days, but like some days, I'm like, yeah, cool. Like I'm not going to text you at 2 a.m. and be like, oh my god, I had 5 grams too much of rice flakes. What do I do? Like I fully understand that,
This is
you know?
something people need to stop doing. Again, sorry, I'm backtracking, but people got say 24/7 access. Fuck off. Unless you have a team working behind you, you don't. You're not. I'm not going to reply to you at 3 a.m. So I'm not going to say 24/7. I say I'm available between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday.
Which is
Unless
completely
it's
reasonable for what
and
people pay.
yes,
Like
and look,
extremely
if
reasonable.
you're prepping and you're doing a show and it's an emergency, fucking
Yeah.
just text me whenever and I'll get back to you as
Yeah.
fast as possible. But for the most part, like you want to deliver on your promises. And if you're saying 24/7 straight away, you're not delivering.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I was gonna say something else, so I've forgotten what it was. But that's I think that's something everyone when they put like a website together, like automatically they go 24/7, 24/7 access, 24/7. I had it on my website, 24/7 access, but it's not. You don't do that. So don't offer it. Don't promise it.
And a lot of those apps as well, they just have really high churn rates. So a lot of them will go, cool, our average customer stays with us for 3 months and 3 days. We just need to keep getting more, right? Not too many of them focus on like, oh, how can we improve it so that like our retention is actually quite good, which is another one for you. I imagine your retention's a lot better than um, many other coaches. So like, here's another thing. So too many people when they get into business, they start thinking about how do I get new customers? How do I get new customers? How do I get new customers? It's like, how can I get more out of old customers, right? So here's an example for you. So you're a coach, great. Like you have your regular client base. Could you do a meetup training once a month? You do a group training session, posing, all that sort of stuff where you can get 30 people there. Cool. Well, that 30 people, it doesn't matter whether it's 10 people, 100 people. It's like you can do a 2 hour event or whatever that is and charge a small fee. That's adding more value to your current client base, but also another way for you to grow. And if you can do that, it just
Or
means
you
you don't
could,
need more clients.
or like I do that a couple times a year. I don't charge anything for it. It's just part of something else now. But it's just part of the community I'm trying to build. I want
Yeah.
people to like, like you create a positive environment. You make a
Yeah.
cool video,
Yeah.
kind of show what we're about. Because one thing that all this is successful coaches in New Zealand in the fitness industry, whether it be posing coaching, bodybuilding coaching, whatever, whether they've realized they've done it or not, and I've been wanting to touch on this, I just haven't, is they've created like a community or like they've created an environment that people want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their own thing. So like look at people like Frank, people like Rhiannon. They might not even realize they've done it. They probably do. But they've created like something that's just something that people want to be a part of. Like people join
It's FOMO.
people sign up with me, they know what I'm about. They know what my mindset's like. They know what I'm, they know how I am to work with. So that's what either draws them to me or pushes them away. But you know what I mean? So you're attracting people you want to be around, but also it's like it's something. It's not just I'm being coached by by Bob or whatever. I don't want to say names because I might actually say someone's name and they might think I'm talking about them. I'm not. But you know what I mean? So it's like you've created just an environment, and doing things like you just said just adds to that. It gets people together. Majority of the time, it's only going to be a good thing. I
You could
find
do that with some more scale though, right? So like
100%.
look up like online community. So it's just taking what you sort of do for there and instead of doing it for 100 people, how do you do it for 1,000? And then I guess it's hard, right? It's like really how much of that bespoke experience do you want to provide people? Like if you love that like the WhatsApping and having that level, you're never gonna be able to do that for 1,000 people, right? So if you can't grow more volume, you're gonna have to charge more. Like something's got to give for you to like decide which avenue to go. And I imagine a lot of people are in the same boat, right? Where they're like, I want to grow, but I don't want to lose quality. It's more just the mechanism for delivery, right? Like how can you is there a way where you could say reach 1,000 people instead of 100, but you're only losing 5 to 10% of your offering? They might not get DMs, but they might get something else. Like what something's got to give
I
there.
think for me, it's never been. I'm more like everyone knows this. I'm more quality over quantity. So I'm that other side of the coin. But I've seen like very successful coaches and trainers in other countries, who have basically either maxed out what they've done or they're just burnt out. They've just, like you said before, they've hired 3-4 trainers or coaches who are already good, mentored them a bit, and then just funneled them. They've got inquiries. Sorry, I'm not taking anyone else on, but you go to this guy, and I'm overlooking their room to begin with, and so that's what they've done. And I think that's a cool way of being able to like build, like leverage what you're doing, but still still have it in your way of doing things, if that makes sense.
Like a joint venture or affiliate type thing, right? Where they're like, you don't necessarily your employees, but you could go, I don't know, take a percentage, for example, right? Where you coach, I'll coach, and I'll send you people, or we'll do it, you do it my way, and I'll take 25% or whatever that number is. And it's good because they're technically still self-employed and it keeps them motivated. So that's what you call like a joint venture. So yeah, that's still leveraging people. It's just a better way that benefits both. And I think if you're finding those people that are hungry,
there's a lot to be done as well before you get to that. Like, I think for that to actually be successful, because you've also got to keep in mind, like, these people that, because I'm just going by based on what I've seen, like if you look at, I don't know if you know them, but there's people like Matt Jansen, AJ Sims, blah blah blah. They're very top high end coaches, like Olympia level. They're coaching multiple Olympians. They've won massive titles, and they've done that. But you know, they got to the point where they were, you know, in that position, and they wanted to obviously. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm just looking from the outside, but they've hired people to work under them, and now these people that are working under them are charging way more than what they were prior. So, and the only way they're able to do that is because of the reputations that the top dog is built. So it takes ages, like it obviously takes ages and a lot of success to build a reputation that's powerful enough to be able to just take a few people that are doing okay, make them better, and now they're charging close to what you are. Because you know it would need to be like that in order to make it worth your time, worth your while. Because you, and
I guess that's testament to like what people don't realize when they get into business is like they think too small on the time horizon thing. I think people think, oh, it's going to be a year, and then I'm on a boat sipping mojitos, and you know, I'm a millionaire. It's just like it's a really, really long term game, right? Like think of like when we first met to now, it's been 12 years, but you've kind of like done really, really well at establishing stuff. And you go, what's the next 10 years? It's like, great, how do I do what I've done here in other markets without butchering my offering and that sort of thing? It is a bit of a delicate balance, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else you want to touch on that?
Well, it depends how much, because I think we might need another episode.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know where you're going to go with it, but I think we should say, are you talking about the next step?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just leave that for today. If people want to hear it, we'll do more. There was a few good questions. A lot of the stuff we've already, I'm going to cross a few of them off because we've already kind of gone into them.
Yep.
But one of the things that someone asked me was, what's the biggest mistake you see people make in the fitness space? And we should probably change it to mistakes because there's going to be a few.
In relation to business, you mean, or?
Yes, business.
Yeah. Not get their pricing right is one. So they just go, oh, I saw online someone was charging $10 a week. Then they get 40 clients, 50 clients or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm making less than a full-time job. So pricing, the things for you was that social proof, for example, either not having enough, any, or just downright bullshit ones that are just, you know, like they've obviously poached from somewhere. I think it's a trust thing for me, the fitness industry. I think it's a big one. Where I see it get it wrong is like, you'll be like, I'll use you as an example just because I see you all the time, but like, I see all your other clients constantly resharing your stuff, right? Or like constantly tagging and stuff. Like, dude, you've obviously built a pretty damn good community. If someone's like, hey coach, look at my fucking pancakes. Like, are you proud of my pancakes? Like, which I do as well. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna make them look good. Like, yeah, I think like, dude, that to me is a big trust thing. They treat you like a sibling almost, right? Which in business is hard. So I think the whole fitness industry has a really bad rap for not being trustworthy. And I think there are a few bad operators that kind of have left sad sour tastes in a lot of people's mouths. As one. And then I also think just the like you said, you'd get some pretty good fulfillment if someone came in and they were obese and they managed to get back down to like a healthy body fat of like 15, 20% or whatever, right? You'd be like, cool, I've just probably shaved 20 years off this guy's life or girl's life. Yeah, I think that like making it look like it's all about like 4% body fat and like real vascularity and all this like that's what I sort of said, like you got to have a good balance between the bodybuilding stuff and some of the lifestyle stuff too. What else in relation to business? In regards to clients, I'll give you a gym one because I've had quite a few gym clients. They spend way too much energy on the acquisition and not enough on retention, right? It's so cyclical and it's so punishing because it's not that complicated of a solution, right? Every time January, you get a lot of signups at the end of the year, it goes like this, and then January comes around, you get massive signups, and then they don't come. They come for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they're back to their usual ways, right? Most people. Then they go, oh, I've got a payment holiday, and they churn pretty quickly after, right? Well, why do they churn? Because you've put no systems in place to keep them coming back, right? None of them, no order emails being like, hey, here's our classes this week. Hey, I see you haven't checked in for a while. Why don't you come do, you know what I mean? Like, do you want to come talk to a PT or a staff member? Or like, does anyone call them? Like, if you think of how many members a gym has, right? Let's use a decent one. 1,000 members, right? Let's do this math. 1,000 members and they churn 8%. Like, you could hire someone on a minimum wage, and if they save half of them, it's worth the money. And then some. Like, it's profitable. Like, they don't put any energy into the follow-up. Or like okay, I'm not going to mention any names, but like if I look at all the gyms on average, all their stuff is 2 weeks free. Here's a free key fob. Here's 1 month free. Free. They give you all that shit up at the front. How many times do you see them go, hey, you've been a member for 2 years. How about a fucking branded towel or like a shaker or like a tub of protein? None of that. Have you?
Nah, it's funny you
Never.
say that because yeah, one of my friends was saying like, he was saying he was trying to tell me to do something ages ago, or wasn't, I don't know if he was telling me or he's talking about a gym. I can't remember. It's very vague, but he was saying like they get like colored T-shirts for every kind of like like you do karate, you get the belts, kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
but as a gym, like you get like a red T-shirt and then you get a black one, and then you get so it's true. It's funny
Something
because
though,
when
right? Like it's yeah.
I before we moved here, we're in the city, so I was gonna join I was gonna do like a few months at Les Mills because they had stairmasters and I wanted to use stairmasters in the morning. That's all I wanted it for. I'd been a member in the past, and I went on their website and I was going to sign up for a month, and they were doing like some free 2 weeks or something. So I was like, I'll do that first because I might not like it, so I don't want to join up because it was like a bit of a contract. So I put my details in, but then I never got around to it, and I just kept getting calls every single day. And I ended up not doing it because we ended up moving way faster than I thought we were going to.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, like they're a very successful gym. They probably make the most money out of any gym in the country. I don't know if they do, but I would just guess. And that follow up could have. I mean, if I wasn't moving, I probably would have gone in. So it does show that like those calls, they help for sure. Like
That's just a call though, right?
Yeah.
So like I'll give you my gym membership at the moment, I think costs $20, give or take a week, right? If you put up my price $2 into 52, let's say it's $100 a year. Use that $100 a year to send me some cool shit 3 times a year, right? Here's a branded singlet. Here's a keychain. Here's a shaker. Hey, I'm like 6 months in, happy 6 months. Here's a $20 voucher for a sub shop. All that shit. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, even better yet, get the manager to sign off on it, right? Like print out all this sorts of stuff to make people feel good. Like it's so easily doable, but they're so hungers on like instead of like trying to fix the leak in the boat, they're just worried about like get more people in. It's like plug your leaks.
I think
Retention.
That could even be more relevant to like family-owned gyms too, to be honest. I only say that because a lot of the time they're a lot more personal. Like the owner's probably working on the desk, and them personally, and and then they start doing things like that. Oh, it's so cool! Like, oh, I want to support them now.
Yeah.
Like when my gym I train at, during COVID and all that. Before that, like the owner who I actually trained with, he was on the desk all the time, and good relationships with all the members and all that. And yeah, I'm sure there was lots of people who were saying, hey, like keep my payments going through lockdown. I want to support the gym. I don't think they could do that because like legally, I think debit success or whatever like had to block them. But Just the fact that they want to, that there's going to be, like you say, it's going to, one, it will retain people, but two, you never know what's going to happen, and there might be times
Yeah.
where you need support as a gym owner. And you know, if you have the better relationship you have with customers, the better. So, and those things you said are so easy to do, man. So
It's
easy
not
to
that
do.
hard. It's like you've
like a
got
team.
most of them have CRMs and all sorts that are like Jane Blog hasn't been to the gym in 2 months. Cool, let's bring him. But hey, you're good. Like you're paying us for nothing. We want you to get value. How about you come and talk to us and we'll do your program? Like all of a sudden, that person who's probably going to churn in another two months or whatever, you've probably just kept for life after that.
Yeah.
But that applies to anything, any business, right? Like if you've got repeat customers or like you do work for a customer, like tradespeople. Like I bought you buy a brand new house when like the real estate agent typically or whoever it is brings you like a cool box full of like nice shit, and depending on who the salesperson was, they might come out and shake your hand and be like, wow, congrats, because it's such an emotional thing, right? It's not hard to do these little things just to let people know that you're thinking of them and that you value them. You take their money and never talk to them. It's like, how long is that going to last?
Yeah, for sure. Another question. This is the last question I have that we haven't already covered, but a few people asked me this, and it's something I've done, but it's not the easiest thing to advise other people because I've been asked about it quite a bit. And for people who wanting to go full time online, not working in the gym anymore, because I think everyone gets to the point where you do enough. Any PT who's been PTing for 10 years will attest to this. Like you get to a point where it's just not fun anymore. It's real fun for a while, and then for 99% of PTs, whether they're being honest or not, they'll tell you like if I could work online, I would. What are some things? I don't even know if you can answer this, but say I was a full-time PT and I would wanted to go online. What would be some things that you would be what would be some advice?
Yeah,
to make that transition.
You need to keep as much of the value that you give in person as possible transitioning online, right? Like if you're training them in person, like if that's a big part of your value add, I don't know, do you do Zooms or it's got to transition over, or like your pricing adjusted accordingly, right? Like you can't just go, cool, I'm $100 a week in person, and then now you only get to email me. Like you got to keep as much of that experience as possible or price it accordingly. From personal experience, I feel like both extremes aren't the answer either. I feel like people that do like a hybrid approach are always the most fulfilled because they still get that like, and I know that's just from working at home and working in the office. It's like there are times where I prefer working at the office because you get the social interaction and there's a bit of a buzz and atmosphere and all that sort of thing. But there's times where I just want to sit at home at my desk and not be fucking interrupted. So I guess it's the same question to answer for you guys. It's like, do you want to go online just because you're like sick of being client facing 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Like, would 20 hours a week be better? You know, like you do 2 days a week at the gym and that's your like in-person stuff, and then you do it part of it online. I don't know. But just making sure you carry over as much of that value that you gave in the first place over.
Well, I personally just like, I'll get an urge to do some PT sessions. So I'll just randomly, I don't plan them, but I'll just randomly like, hey, next Thursday, guys, I'm doing 4 sessions. Who wants to book? That's how I do it. But that's not a recurring thing. I way prefer online. But one of the reasons I prefer online as well is there's so much more value, especially the way I work, with like competitors. I do check-ins so often that if they were to see me in person, it would just cost too much. Because I used to charge, when I was in person, like I would charge for a training program. I would charge for every check-in, like they would come in for their nutrition, and I'll charge a PT session. So if they were to pay for the in-person nutrition and the training program every time I change it, like it would just get ridiculous. And also,
but then your customer changes, right? Because your customer changes to the person willing to pay for that.
Exactly, and not just that, but like there's only so much time you have, and like that, you know, like you just can't do it. Like I said before, if you're checking in multiple times per day as well, you can't do that in person. So there's so many things
so I'll give you a question that kind of ties back into one of the questions that you asked earlier, and it applies to you a bit more. I know what you charge because I pay it, but like for that, like it's totally possible to find. Like I extremely value what you do for me. I don't think 4 times that would, like I wouldn't have flinched at that, to be honest. So I think it's about not necessarily about finding like oh, I've got to tweak my offer or whatever. It's just finding people that value that as much as well, right?
For
I
sure.
think because you've been accustomed to like the bodybuilders and stuff that like spend all their money on chicken and sups and stuff. So you're like, oh, I've got to keep the price down, I've got to keep the price down. But there's also people that pay, like, look at the celebrity PTs. Like, they'll do a 20-minute Zumba class with like Charlize Theron and charge her 20 grand.
Yeah,
But she values it because someone's come to her house and done it, right? So it's like finding those people.
for sure. And then offering a service that is equipped for that as well. Being like, you know, always got told, someone who helped me a lot when I was doing in-person stuff, and he helped me a lot with like price points and all that. He always said like, you need to like, this is when I was PT, he's like, you need to be charging an amount that makes you work to the best of your ability. You know what I mean? Like, if you're underselling yourself, you're not going to work to, you know,
there's always that feeling, right? Of like, it's like almost like, this is why I don't like getting discounts and stuff. Because then if something, you know, oh, I gave you a better price, or like, oh, you got a discount. Like, I hate that shit. I was like, just charge me whatever you want to charge me, but I just want the best. And I think that's, you got the right attitude there, is like, charge a price that like you're literally willing to do whatever it takes.
Because like I said before, my thing's never been, I don't want thousands of people. I just want, you know, I'd rather charge more money, provide a way better service for less. Because I pride myself on that too. Like, I love hearing, you know, not every client's going to say this as well, but people who actually buy into the process and actually apply themselves and actually put effort in, they all say the same thing. Like, they all rave about the service, and they rave about the results, and you know, they're happy. And that's what I love, hearing that kind of stuff. It's like when you train with someone and someone goes, oh, he trains crazy. Like, oh yeah, like that's a buzz, you know? Versus, oh yeah, he was all right. Like, yeah, but slow to reply to me and took 4 days to do updates. Like, that's bullshit. I never want to be that. I get enough inquiries from people who are complaining about whoever they're working with or worked with. Oh, they took about a week to do my update. I'm like, a week? By a week, you need the next changes. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the biggest problem I see across just everything. Like, we're in the middle of setting up another entity now, and we're using contractors and suppliers and all sorts, and just the level of like service and the turnaround time for comms, the level of comms, it's disgusting. I'm like, we just have to, like, all I have to do is like communicate back to customers within a reasonable time frame and speak in a tone that's positive, and we're already doing better than 90% of the market. That's why I guess the people don't get it to us. Like, is I want to be the best, but like when it comes to competition, obviously the more boxes you can tick in terms of being able to compete against someone, but like the barrier to entry is so low. Like you said, like, I imagine that's the standard turnaround for PTs, right? It's like, apart from the few exceptional ones like you guys, like you, that sort of get back quickly and have that level of enthusiasm, it's all like 2-day email response times, and you know, like no direct access, and they're like 5-word replies and shit like that. It's like, nah, well, no wonder you don't fucking grow. Again, churn, right? Like, you're losing more than you sign up, or they're about break even. That's when, oh, I just need to get more customers. It's like, no, you just need to fucking be better. Like, it's not that hard.
sure. And there's a time to be like short and stern with people. Like, to be honest, because if you sometimes, like, I used to, when I first started, I would kind of create problems myself by being too, I don't know how to describe it. Like, they would ask me something, I shouldn't, that what they're asking me shouldn't even be addressed, or they will text me really late, and you reply, you kind of just let them know it's okay to do this, but like in the long term, that's not okay. So you got to set those boundaries, and kind of, I think you work with people long enough, you know when to be firm, when to be short, and when to be the opposite, and be really like, you know, like when to give that pat on the back. You don't want to do it too much. I don't like to give it too much, because you know, you got to have people operate in a certain level, and if you're too nice all the time when you shouldn't be, they're going to think it's okay. But
it's like what you did with me. You know, when you said to, like, I asked you, it's like, hey man, can we do less meals or whatever? You're like, doable, not optimal. In my head, I'm like, fuck, I want the best. Okay, cool, never mind, I'll take that back.
We can do it.
Like,
but
that's
it's
it.
not, you know, people will be like, oh hey, can I it's my dad's birthday, and is it all good if I have some burgers? And I'm like, yeah, you can for sure, but like, just because I say it's okay doesn't mean it's gonna not have an effect.
Like, you're still gonna have to ditch that shit that you ate, or
I think people think like, or they'll be like, oh, he's such a dick, he wouldn't let me do this. I'm like, I'm not letting you do it because I don't want you to do it. I'm just telling you, like, it's not, you want to get here, and it's not going to get you there if you do that. I'm trying my
it's
best.
like the daddy complex, right?
That-
It's like you're fucking paying me to get you the best results, and you're not even doing it. Like, why are we here?
One thing that really helped me get like, because I wanted to, you know this, I was trying to get like more online for ages, and I was kind of at a point where I was doing like, I was full time in person, and then I can't remember the numbers, but I think I had like 15 clients every Friday checking in with me,
Mm.
and I would just do my online stuff on a Friday, and that was kind of, I was like that for quite a while, and I was struggling to get past that, and anyway, what I needed to do, like COVID kind of helped this, kind of broke me to the next point. But what I needed to do was, after that, I needed to be very, very firm on, like, I went back to the gym. I was like, okay, I'm only going to PT 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm doing no in-person nutrition. It's all online. If anyone wants to work with me, it's online.
Yeah.
That will mean you're going to lose some money, because there's going to be people who come and they're like, oh, I only want to see online. I'm sorry, I can't do it. They're going to go to someone else. But you're going to get a lot of people who won't, and you're going to build that, like, that consistent income or that consistent client base. It was hard, because I'm like, oh, I could fit this person, but that means I'm gonna have to go Tuesday. I was like, no, I've got to have discipline. I can't work Tuesday. Like, if I do that, it's just gonna go back to how it was. So from there, I went.
You have to be relentless, when you say
and I was
no
like,
for
okay,
those things, especially your time.
now I've built this up this much. Now I'm gonna drop to 2 days in the gym. And I remember I dropped from 2 days. And then pretty much like the next week I dropped, I was like, so I'm going to drop to 1 day now. Just going to do 1 day in the gym. And then I did that for a few months. And then I was like, I'm just going to full-time online now. And that's how I did it. And like I said, there that didn't happen very often, but there was a few times where people were like, oh, I only want in-person nutrition. And I did the whole, it's not going to be any different, but they wanted it, and you lose that money and whatever. It's nothing in the long run. Just think of the big picture.
You just learn over time what works and what doesn't, right? You kind of like, cool, now this is my offering. The different thing for you though, it's like, how can I do it more? How can I, that's your, I guess that's your next step. And I guess episode 2, we can kind of use you as an example, right? Because obviously I use you as an example just because it's easy, because I know
for sure. People know, people watch.
But on that topic, we're going to have to wrap up because I'm on a time restriction. So
it's good to have you, bro. Thank you for coming on. If you enjoyed this, let us know.
Good fun.
Share it. Like the video, all that kind of stuff. Help us get it out. And if you want to hear part 2, if you want us to elaborate a little bit more, we can do that. But let me know. You got to let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume that everyone hated it and no one watched it. But anyway, guys, thank you, bro. Thank you for coming on. Until next time, I'll probably hear from you later today anyway. There's something I needed to ask you, but it's for off. That's for off here. But other than that, man, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. I hope people took it in. I know we kind of scattered all over the place, but we knew that would happen. It was good. It was good chatting, bro.
You're good. No worries. I'll see you next time.
Real life, real talk, never fall, we ain't doing that. Want me fall off, but I can't, I'm just too attached. I was so lost, I ain't going back. Never fall, we on the road, we on the road.